A land plagued by conflict, setting the historical stage. The Israel-Hamas conflict is not a recent development. It is deeply rooted in a century-old struggle over land, identity and security. At the heart of this conflict lies the dispute over the territory that encompasses modern-day Israel and the Palestinian territories. For Jews, this land holds profound religious and historical significance, considered their ancestral homeland. For Palestinians, it is their home, where generations have lived and built their lives. The origins of the conflict can be traced back to the early 20th century, with the rise of both Zionism, a movement advocating for a Jewish state in Palestine, and Palestinian nationalism. As Jewish immigration to Palestine increased, tensions with the Arab population grew, culminating in violence and displacement. The British, who controlled Palestine after World War I, struggled to find a solution that would satisfy both sides. This failure to resolve the competing claims set the stage for the ongoing conflict. Key events that shaped a century from war to intifada. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War, following the establishment of the State of Israel, resulted in a decisive Israeli victory and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. This event, known as the Nakba catastrophe by Palestinians, remains a deeply traumatic and defining moment in their history. The 1967 Six-Day War further altered the landscape. Israel's swift victory led to its occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip and East Jerusalem, further displacing Palestinians and solidifying Israel's control over the territories. The First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising that began in 1987, marked a turning point. It brought the Palestinian issue to the forefront of global attention and highlighted the human cost of the occupation. These events, marked by violence, displacement and failed peace initiatives, have shaped the complex and intractable conflict we see today. They have fueled resentment, distrust and a deep sense of grievance on both sides. Hamas, an ascendant force in a turbulent landscape. Hamas, an Islamic fundamentalist organization, emerged in the late 1980s during the First Intifada. It quickly gained popularity, particularly in the Gaza Strip, by providing social services and challenging Israel's occupation through armed resistance. Hamas rejects Israel's right to exist and advocates for its destruction. The organization's charter calls for the liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea, a position that is fundamentally at odds with Israel's existence.
In 2006, Hamas won a surprise victory in Palestinian legislative elections, further complicating the dynamics of the conflict. The international community, with the exception of a few countries, designates Hamas as a terrorist organization. Our control of Gaza and commitment to armed struggle have made us a central actor in the conflict. Our actions, including rocket attacks on Israeli civilians, have been met with fierce Israeli military responses, perpetuating the cycle of violence.
Section 4. Rockets and retaliation, a vicious cycle of violence. Recent years have witnessed a significant escalation in the conflict, marked by increasingly frequent and intense rounds of violence.
Hamas has continued to fire rockets indiscriminately into Israel, terrorizing Israeli civilians and disrupting daily life.
Israel, possessing a far superior military, responds with airstrikes and ground incursions into Gaza, targeting Hamas infrastructure and operatives. However, these operations often result in significant civilian casualties and widespread destruction in the densely populated Gaza Strip.
This cycle of rocket attacks and retaliatory strikes has become tragically predictable, with each round exacting a heavy toll on both sides.
The underlying issues remain unaddressed, fueling a sense of hopelessness and despair. Section 5. The human cost of conflict. Gaza under siege. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is dire and deteriorating.
The Strip, home to over 2 million Palestinians, has been under an Israeli-Egyptian blockade since 2007, severely restricting the movement of people and goods.
This blockade, combined with the repeated rounds of violence, has crippled Gaza's economy, destroyed its infrastructure and left its population in a perpetual state of humanitarian crisis.
Access to basic necessities such as clean water, electricity, and healthcare is severely limited. The psychological toll of living under constant threat of violence and siege is immeasurable.
Children, in particular, bear the brunt of this trauma, their childhoods marred by fear, loss, and uncertainty.
The international community has repeatedly called for an end to the blockade and increased humanitarian aid to Gaza. However, these calls have largely gone unheeded, leaving the population trapped in a cycle of poverty and despair. Section 6. A world-divided international reactions and inaction. The international community's response to the Israel-Hamas conflict has been characterized by division and a failure to find a lasting solution.
The United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has consistently vetoed UN Security Council resolutions condemning Israeli actions.
European countries, while often critical of Israeli settlement expansion and military operations in Gaza, have also been reluctant to take concrete action that could jeopardize their relationships with Israel.
The Arab world, while largely united in its condemnation of Israeli policies towards the Palestinians, remains divided internally and has been unable to exert significant pressure on Israel to change course.
This international paralysis has allowed the conflict to fester, with each round of violence pushing the prospect of a peaceful resolution further out of reach. Section 7. Hope amidst the ruins, prospects for peace and the challenges ahead. The path to peace between Israel and Hamas is fraught with obstacles.
The two sides hold fundamentally irreconcilable positions, with Hamas refusing to recognize Israel's right to exist, and Israel viewing Hamas as a terrorist organization bent on its destruction.
The international community's failure to hold both sides accountable for their actions has only emboldened them to continue pursuing their objectives through violence.
However, even amidst the despair, glimmers of hope exist. Civil society organizations on both sides continue to work tirelessly to bridge the divide, fostering dialogue and understanding between ordinary Israelis and Palestinians.
International pressure, though often ineffective, remains crucial. The international community must work to create the conditions for meaningful negotiations by holding both sides accountable for their actions and ensuring the equitable treatment of both Israelis and Palestinians.
Ultimately, a lasting solution will require courageous leadership on both sides, a willingness to compromise, and a shared commitment to building a future where both Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace and security.